we're going to take a look at how we can supercharge the way we practice so that we can learn any skill incredibly more efficiently, faster, and better. And it doesn't have to be just magic. It could be sports, any instrument, could be absolutely anything you want. So let's not waste any more time and dive right into it. We're going to start off with the way that Vernon used to practice, and this is going to set the tone for the rest. Let's say he's trying to learn some sleight of hand move, in this case, the double lift. So the double lift is trying to make it seem like you're turning a single card over. So that's what he would do. He would just turn a single card over, and then he would try to emulate that, make it seem like he's turning one card over while really turning two. Then he would turn a single card over again, followed by turning two, and he would try to make both of them not only look the same, but also feel the same. Then you can start to almost like up the way in which you practice by getting rid of some of your senses. So the way you do that is by just covering your eyes. For those reasons, I like to practice completely blindfolded and move my head around so that my head is also not in the same spot. I could do the move while looking in any direction and not even looking at what I'm doing, just doing it by feel alone. Before we get to the stuff that just gets me incredibly excited, I want to just bust the 10,000 hour myth where you have to spend 10,000 hours in order to become a master at whatever it is you do. Science says that is not true. What is actually true is not the time, but the amount of repetitions that you do in that time. There are tons of different experiments out there, research papers that back up everything I'm telling you here. If you want to take a look at those, I'm going to leave them in the description. What these studies are letting us know is that we need to perform as many repetitions per unit time as we possibly can in order to learn this skill, or at least at the very beginning. The important part is that we repeat those repetitions regardless of whether we do the move or the skill correctly or incorrectly. What that means is that science tells us that we actually need to make errors. We have to make mistakes in order for us to learn. So repetitions are important, but the mistakes are even more important. So we want to leverage those mistakes so that we can accelerate our learning. So what do the mistakes do? Well, they actually do two things. The first is that now we know what we need to correct. So there's an error correction that needs to take place. And the second is we actually open the door to neuroplasticity. So what is neuroplasticity? It is the ability to change and respond to an experience so that it can modify itself, and we're talking about the brain, in order to perform better. Mistakes are actually telling your brain how to change, but if you walk away or you stop that practice of that skill, there's no change. The repetitions need to continue to take place in order for the neuroplasticity to happen. And the cool thing is that science shows the more mistakes you make, the more plastic your brain becomes. And that is absolutely incredible. So what happens is when you do get it right, that pattern is going to get rewarded and consolidated. So the brain is going to remember that it was done properly in that way. The reward that you get is in the form of dopamine. So it is important not to take anything that's going to elevate your dopamine level before your practice. Because if you raise your dopamine level here and you get it correct, you're just going to get a little spike. But if your dopamine is at a standard level down here where it should be, once you practice and you get it correct, the spike is going to be way higher. And so this contrast, the brain will recognize as it needs to remember this specific skill or way, whatever it is you're trying to learn, it's going to remember and consolidate that. So I know what you're thinking, this all sounds cool and everything, but how do we put it into practice? And it could not be any simpler. All you have to do is just designate some time for your practice. And it's going to vary on a day-to-day basis or up to everyone. But if you have 10 minutes, that's enough. If you have 30 minutes, if you have an hour, whatever you can, just dedicate that time specifically and only for learning. That's it. Try to make as many repetitions as you can in that time frame that you gave yourself. And remember that making mistakes is key to getting better and learning. You actually have to fail during your sessions in order for that neuroplasticity to take place. What's going to happen is you're going to start noticing those mistakes, and that is where your attention is going to go, and that is where your attention needs to be. And the most important one of them all is the second your session is over and you do absolutely nothing for 10, 5, or even just 1 minute. And here's what the data actually shows. It's absolutely beautiful. What happens is your brain replays that practice that you just did, and it consolidates everything you did right. It remembers all of it, and it actually eliminates everything that did not work. That's why it's important to have those dopamine levels correctly so that you can get your spikes, and then your brain knows exactly what to do. The really strange thing that scientists don't really understand yet is the way in which the brain plays the information. When it does it during sleep, it's doing it in normal time. It's going forwards in time. When you do it right after the practice and you close your eyes for about 1, 5, or 10 minutes, your brain is actually replaying it back in time, in reverse. Science doesn't really understand why the brain plays it back that way. What they do know is that it is exactly that makes the consolidation of that information actually take place. A lot of people finish practice and they go on their phone, they watch a movie, pull up YouTube, I don't know, or they go do something, talk to someone. The key is to shut down the brain completely by closing your eyes and just doing absolutely nothing, having no outside stimuli whatsoever, so the brain can process what you're trying to learn. And I know that we can't just learn this skill in just one session. If we're trying to learn a difficult poem or a guitar solo or who knows what skill we're trying to learn, what do we do after this session? And it's actually pretty simple. Once we become somewhat proficient in the skill we're trying to learn, what we need to do is pay attention to one specific aspect of the skill we're trying to learn. It sounds complicated, but data shows it's incredibly easy because it doesn't matter what you pay attention to, as long as you pay attention to one specific aspect of the skill you're trying to learn. So let's say you're trying to learn a poem. You could just focus for that entire session on one aspect of that poem. And that could be how relaxed your hand is. That could be maybe your pinky pushing down on the card, or it could be anything at all that you want, as long as it's the same thing for the entire session. Now let's say that during your practice, you can get that move or that skill down exactly as you want it. Well, now you can start time shifting or metronoming. But you should only do this once you're, let's say, 50% or above on the skill you're trying to learn, because you're going to have to be pretty proficient in order for this to actually make sense. What you want to do is set the metronome a little bit faster. And if you don't know what a metronome is, it is a little device to just keep time. So it'll just tick at any interval time that you want. Musicians use it to help them keep the rhythm. Whether you have an iPhone or an Android, you can just get a free one from their app store. We're gonna set the metronome a little bit faster than what we can actually perform the move, so that every time we hear that click, we do the move. The idea is that we set the metronome a little bit faster than what we're comfortable doing, so that we can start making mistakes, so that we can start making our brain more plastic, enhancing the neuroplasticity and making us learn way faster. The actual external pressure of us having to perform this skill at that cadence of the metronome actually enhances the neuroplasticity and it accelerates our learning. And that is true even if we were to perform the same skill at the same speed that the metronome is ticking, but just without the metronome. So there's absolutely no reason not to just download one or even a couple metronome apps to have on your phone so that you can use it as you practice. What scientists have found is that even just 10 minutes of practice in the way that I have just described to you is better than 2 hours of distracted practice. That is, checking your phone or practicing different things rather than just one thing in the way we've discussed. So I'd rather do 10 minutes of this style of practice than 2 hours of all over the place practice. What you should also know is that you're not just going to improve perfectly in a straight line. You're actually going to improve a little bit and then you'll feel like you're declining, but really you're just getting ready to go back up again, so on and so forth. So your learning and your skills are going to gradually go up. But don't feel discouraged if you feel like they're going down just a little bit. That is completely normal and it's a part of the process. Let's say you don't want to do everything that I've just described and you just want something simple that you can start immediately applying to the way you currently practice. Well, what you could do is just sporadically throughout your practice, doesn't have to be at any specific time, you just completely stop what you're doing for 15 to 30 seconds. You close your eyes and you do nothing, you think about nothing. Here, your brain is going to go into hyperdrive and it's going to perform that skill many more times that we would actually be able to physically. So that is just making you practice more times in the same amount of time, but it's just your brain doing it rather than you. To summarize the neuroplasticity way of practicing, what you want to do is set a specific amount of time in which you're going to practice, knowing that is not about the time, is about the amount of repetitions you do in that time. Once you become proficient, you want to start focusing your attention on any particular part of that skill at all that you want. It is not important what you focus on, as long as it is one aspect of the skill you're trying to learn, or the metronome once you've already gotten to a point where you can proficiently do this skill. And the most important thing of all, remember, is to do nothing after your session. You just close your eyes, you have no external stimuli, and you just do nothing. Your brain is going to consolidate everything you did right, is going to eliminate everything you did wrong, all of your mistakes, and it's going to accelerate your learning process, enhancing your neuroplasticity, making you learn your skill that much faster. As you can see, it's actually incredibly easy to use the way our brain works automatically to supercharge the way we learn skills. And remember, this was based pretty much just on magic, but it works with anything: sports, instruments, learning, reading, absolutely anything at all that you want. This is going to help you because it's just the way our brain works. So if you know anybody that's interested in this, whether it's a musician, another magician, an athlete, feel free to send them this video. Please like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know if you like this type of videos. I've never done this before, so let me know what you think. Let me know if there's anything you would like to learn, and I want to thank you so much for your time, and I will see you next time.